When would a parent be concerned about a child's sexual play or sexual behaviour?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of guidelines to kind of give a bit of a sense of when behaviours might cross the line to becoming more than just developmentally age expected. You know, we often talk about kids will be kids. You know, they'll play doctors and nurses, they'll play families, they'll play you show me yours and I'll show you mine. I think one of the key messages is that every opportunity is an opportunity to have a conversation, and it needs to start early, you know, with our toddlers. So in terms of when to be worried, when that age expected behaviour might move into more of a concern or the orange kind of level, sometimes we're looking at differences between age of the children. So if you've got a 10-year-old who's initiating bottom games of some sort with a 5-year-old, you know, that would be a little bit more of a concern than a same age peer. We're kind of looking at how mutual is the behaviour. You know, in an adolescent and an adult world, we talk about consent, and consent is used a lot also, or it's been talked about a lot more also, you know, for our preschoolers and our kindy age kids. But how mutual was this game? How mutual was this behaviour or not? How distressed perhaps one of the children might be over the other, like, you know, again, slowing down to get a wee bit of a context. And then we're also looking at differences in perhaps functioning. You know, if there's a child who's functioning much lower cognitively, alongside a same age peer who might be functioning at a different level, you're kind of looking at differences.
That's right.
What have I missed, Betty? Like
any threats or coercion in the behaviour. So if you don't do this, touch, I'm going to do something, whatever it may
not
be.
Be your friend.
No, I'm going to not be your friend. If you don't play this game with me,
you're not coming to my birthday party.
You're not going to come to my birthday party.
Right.
You're not going to have any friends, or something like that. So we often talk with parents, caregivers, and the children around okay, not okay secrets. Because that's an important, very important.
And to not underestimate that, you know, children can be quite tricky, and but again, this is the real message for parents and caregivers to slow down. You know, the example that I used with the wee 6-year-old girl around perhaps inserting something into her vagina. The behaviour is probably in the orange because we don't want kids to be doing that. It's a concern. But when we slow down and get the context to understand she was playing to process something quite innocent, to make sense of, then there's less of a concern. So it's tricky because we can't kind of manualise this without understanding the context and slowing down and being curious about what's happening.
When we do an inquiry, when I take an inquiry, I'm asking all kinds of questions around the context and what type of touch it was. So the other thing we haven't said is that for us there's a difference between silly school games that go on, like, well, boys, I suppose, or girls who play a little game where it's, you know, touching each other's privates. And there's a difference between a game that's gotten silly and a bit out of hand of that versus putting hands down in clothing or asking someone to remove their pants or their skirt. So if it's under clothes and actually hands on privates, then we're a little more concerned. So it really is about the context and how, really the level of it, how intrusive it is.
And I was thinking how explicit. You know, so again, depending on age. If you've got a 4-year-old who's showing really explicit sexualised behaviour, speaking about it, showing gestures, acting out, using the dolls to act out, then there would be some level of curiosity to explore a little bit more as to, you know, how concerned should we be here. And you know, I think the statistics in Aotearoa is that we do have a lot of kids, sadly, who are still experiencing being harmed.
Mm.
And so we don't want to rule, you know, that there's some tough stuff or some trauma or some sexual harm that has happened. But our encouragement is often for that to not be the first place
Right.
that parents
Yeah.
and caregivers go.
Yeah.
But to be able to slow down, because so many times in our area of work when teachers, when social workers, when grandparents have had conversations, can you tell me what happened?
Mm.
You know, what was the game that you were playing? Sometimes it can be quite an innocent
Mm. Absolutely.
reason for engaging in that behaviour. I was just trying to think of another example. It comes to mind of two little girls who at kindy, so they're little, might be one had their pants down and the other was looking into the other wee friend's bottom. So for an adult to stumble across that behaviour and seeing a little girl with their pants down bending over and the other little girl looking very, very closely, you know, these things sometimes take adults by surprise in terms of how they respond. But if in this situation it was innocent and that one of the wee girls had worms and she was checking out her friend's bottom to make sure that she didn't have worms, and again looking through the eyes of a child. When you think of worms, you know, kids think of potentially garden worms, you know, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
So I think as adults we have to remind ourselves, slow down, through the eyes of a child, conversation, to get the gist of what's happening.